Joining us now, Financial Times U.S. National Editor Ed Luce. Ed is the author of the new book, Zbig, The Life of Zbigniew Brzezinski, America's Great Power Prophet. Also with us is former Democratic Congressman from New York, Max Rose. He's a senior advisor to Vote Vets, and Marc Short, who's still with us. All right, so a lot of booze there. And I wonder, Marc, when you see these town halls, it is true that Democrats will go there in order to express their displeasure with Republicans, and vice versa it happens. But there are also constituents that are Republicans there saying, hey, listen, this is not what I voted for you to do. How much of what they experience in those town halls in a moment like this is taken back and informing the way they vote down the line?
Well, I don't think you can dismiss it as simply AstroTurf. I remember as a Hill staffer in 2008, 2009.
Some of them try to do it.
Sure they do. Yeah. But I'm saying back then when Democrats were advancing Obamacare, the message was, hey, look, all the public outrage out there is just AstroTurf. It's not real. And you saw what happened in 2010 with Republican landslide. I think it's similar this time. I don't think you can sit there and say, oh, this is just AstroTurf, because even if they are Democrats, they have to be motivated for a reason to get out to the town halls and be there. Now, I say that as somebody who certainly supports the tax relief package and extending it. But I do think that Donald Trump was elected in large part on the economy. I think there are a lot of Americans look at this and say GDP was down. We have an uncertain trade agenda. Inflation isn't exactly solved. And so I think there's a lot of that that's bubbling up right now. But I think it's more of a trade agenda issue, really.
Ed, is this bill going to help the economy?
I don't think so, because it worsens the fiscal deficit. It adds at least $3 trillion or so to it over the next decade. And that's going to be and has been reacted to by the Treasury bond markets, where bond prices have been falling, yields have been rising, which, of course, increases the cost of borrowing for American consumers for their credit card debt, their mortgages, their auto loans, and so forth. And also raises a quite new uncertainty over the dollar's role as a reserve currency. But I don't think that the big, beautiful bill, it is big, but I don't think it's beautiful in terms of its impact on consumer confidence and on American growth prospects.
Let me play another person who doesn't think so much of this big, beautiful bill, specifically when it comes to the debt. This is Elon Musk.
So, I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing. I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
This is what we were talking about before, Marc. The idea that the goals that are stated, that they want to cut back on the debt, they want to make America more prosperous, more functional. It's not that their actions are not helping them do that.
Well, look, Katy, I think the reality is that a $5 trillion tax increase, if we don't pass this tax relief bill, is a lot for the American people to consume. I think the reality is that the CBO was off by trillions of dollars in their revenue forecast last time, and likely are again. I think the driver of our deficits has really been entitlement spending, and neither party is willing to address it. Neither party has, and that's what's being left a burden to our children and grandchildren in the future. And to Ed's point about the bond market, certainly I think that is what has spooked the administration. But that started during this trade war. That's why Bessent went to Trump, because the bond markets were unruly and said, we have to pull back on this irrational trade war at the time. So this is just a continuation where this has been. It started during the trade agenda more so than the tax agenda.
What do you think, Max?
My friend, you're wrong. So but it is a legacy, this continued rhetoric that Republicans sprout often of that entitlement spending is the wrong thing. It's just not true. The truth is that we do have a debt problem in the United States of America, but it's one that we can address both with continued growth. We can do things like enhanced immigration. We can do things like investing in our economy. And we can generate more tax revenue, certainly, first and foremost, by looking at all these awful tax loopholes for the top 1%. That's a real way to sustainably address this. I feel bad for Elon because he got used by Donald Trump. He threw $150 million to Donald Trump, and he got some charade of a job for 6 weeks to make him feel good. But they threw him right to the curb, and they're not going to do anything about this because they are actually the most fiscally irresponsible political party in the United States of America.
Ed, as the neutral party here, I want you to weigh in.
I don't feel quite as sorry as Max does for Elon Musk. I think there's $25 billion in the big, beautiful bill for the Golden Dome, and SpaceX Starlink is probably going to be the largest beneficiary of that. The only number that Russ Vought, the director of the Office of Management Budget in the White House, is giving for codifying Musk's fiscal savings, his spending cuts, is $9 billion. That's what they're going to try and get through rescissions on Capitol Hill, which is not even a drop in the bucket. It's barely a few hours worth of public spending. That is what is being shown for Musk's efforts. All this sort of noise and light, and pretty much not even a rounding error to show for it. But I can't feel sorry for him, because it's not a big spending bill, as he calls it. It's a big tax cut bill. And it's fueling a lot of this, I agree, very authentic anger in the town halls, because the spending cuts to Medicaid, to food stamps, to infrastructure, to green energy, they're serious, and they do hit people's bottom lines out there in the real America.
Speaking of which, I want to play another moment from a town hall, and this doesn't have to do with any of the economic stuff, but more of a little-known provision within this GOP bill regarding the judiciary.
This provision was unknown to me when I voted for the bill. When I found out that provision was in the bill, I immediately reached out to my Senate counterparts and told them of my concern. And when I return to Washington, I am going to very clearly tell the people in my conference that we cannot support undermining our court system.
So the provision undermines the court system, which he said there at the end. There was a woman who was really upset about it, and he admitted, Max, he hadn't read the bill. Is that normal to not read the bill?
None of them did. None of them
did. Did you read every bill?
This is a bipartisan failure here. What leadership really on both sides of the aisle will often do, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is you wait until the last minute so you can push through a bill. It's part of the reason why our system writ large is corrupt and ineffective. But I will tell you what he did know about before he voted on it. He knew about the Medicaid cuts that are going to harm millions of veterans, the SNAP cuts that are going to harm millions of veterans, and the fact that the bill disproportionately benefits the wealthiest amongst us. He knew that.
I have some news for you. Michael Grimm was just pardoned.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for him.
Michael Grimm, he held your eventual seat in Staten Island, and he was convicted for tax evasion?
Yeah, he's recently faced some pretty difficult health scares. He got in an accident and was paralyzed, so I'm certainly not going to criticize a guy when he's going through a harsh moment like that. But we wish him the best in a speedy recovery.
All right, I'm going to leave it there. Max Rose, thank you very much for joining us. Ed Luce